All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to TaxLink's latest webinar on taxation in Latin America. We have a very distinguished panel of guests here. Most of them are TaxLink members, actually all of them are. Just to get some admin issues out of the way, we are recording this webinar. The webinar will be available as an audio recording, probably at some point next week. We will also have a transcript for the entire session. We will blog about it, and we'll also put the transcript up on our website. That should take us a couple weeks or so, be patient with us, and it will come out at some point. Feel free to ask questions to the panelists. You can use the control panel to submit any questions you have, and we will pass them along to our moderator. With that said, let me introduce our moderator. Her name is Priscilla Lachman, and she is the head of International Fiscal Affairs Division of the Ministry of Finance in Suriname. Priscilla was, before joining the Ministry of Finance, Priscilla was a tax advisor in the Netherlands. She also serves as a correspondent for the Inter-American Center of Tax Administrations and a professor in international tax law for Suriname's Tax and Customs Administrations. She holds a master in tax law from the University of Leiden in the Netherlands and has completed postgraduate professional tax courses at the Dutch Association of Tax Advisors. With that said, I hope you have an excellent webinar, and I will see you towards the end. Priscilla, the floor is yours. Thanks.
Thank you, Matteo. Thank you all for joining this webinar. It will be hopefully a very interesting hour of interesting topics. With us we have a very nice and distinguished group of panelists. I will let them introduce themselves. I think we can start with Pedro. Pedro? Maybe
yes, hello.
Start with telling something about yourself.
Yes, hello. My name is Pedro Palacios. I'm a corporate and tax attorney practicing in Caracas, Venezuela. I have a tax. I'm graduated as a lawyer from the Universidad Católica Andrés Bello. I have a tax degree from Universidad Central de Venezuela and a management degree from Instituto de Estudios Superiores de Administración IESA. I'm a tax professor at Universidad Metropolitana and Universidad Central de Venezuela. And I'm also a certified compliance professional at your service.
Thank you. Thank you, Pedro. We can move on to Brazil. Mr. Ronaldo, please.
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me well?
I think so.
Sure. Yeah, okay. So, guys, my name is Ronaldo Acabão. I'm a lawyer here in Brazil. I have graduated almost 20 years ago. And I have been working with tax since the beginning. I started in KPMG as an auditor, and then I started working for several companies in Brazil, like Santander and Hewlett-Packard, and at last at Capgemini as the tax manager here for Latin America. Now in 2015, I started my own consulting firm that is called Taxation. You can access on Twitter, on the internet.
Sorry, Ronaldo. I have to interfere. I think your mic is not working properly. We are not getting.
Yeah, let me check. Yeah, let me check. Just a minute.
Can you hear me better now?
I think it's better. Maybe if you say something. If you continue.
And now, can you hear me better, Priscilla?
Yes, it's better than before. Please continue.
Okay, so I'm not presenting myself.
No, Ronaldo. Maybe you should try the headphones again, because this is getting worse. Maybe you can move on to Adrian, and you can try to see what's wrong.
Sure. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night to many people around the world. My name is Adrian Romero. I am a business administrator from Mexico. We have many transfer pricing diplomas from universities in Mexico, Spain, and the United States. I'm currently connected from our office here in Tijuana. Maybe you've heard of Tijuana and some stories. And I'm currently the managing partner of our firm, which is Grupo Consultor F. Our firm is member of Alliot Group, which is the 13th largest association in the world. And also, I am currently chairman of Private Partners International, which is an association of transfer pricing and valuation services firms.
Okay, thank you, Adrian. It's very efficient of you. We can move on to Juan. Please tell us something about yourself.
Hi everybody, my name is Juan Cristóbal Ortega. You can call me Juan. I work at Kerry for 9 years. I'm based in Chile. I studied at Universidad de Chile, and then I got an LLM in International Taxation at NYU. I do personal corporate tax planning, local international tax consulting, mergers, acquisition, for investment transaction, tax litigation.
Okay, thank you, Juan. Then we have Ronaldo. Do you think it will be better this time? Let's give it a try.
Yes, can you hear me better now?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks. To be honest, I was trying to use another computer and not become green to everybody. If you cannot hear me, it does not make sense. So I'm here, I'm not green. I'll talk fast again. So my name is Ronaldo Pelbão. I'm a lawyer here in Brazil. I have been working with taxes for 20 years now. I started at KPMG as an auditor, and then I started working also with several companies like Santander, Hewlett-Packard, responsible for the tax management of these companies here in Brazil. Now in 2015, I started my own firm called Taxativa. It's a small tax consultants and litigation company. And thanks so much for the invitation to be part of the panel.
Okay, thank you, Ronaldo. So now everybody is introduced. We know who we are going to talk to. I think we can start with the questions. We have some very interesting questions regarding Latin America. I think we can just start by, if each of you could tell me what the interesting tax topics are currently in your country, what's the new trends, what's happening regarding tax. We can start again with Pedro, please.
Well, hello. Yes.
Yes.
In Venezuela right now, as it's a general knowledge, we have a very complex financial and economic situation. We are on the border of hyperinflation, if we are not there yet. Therefore, most of the issues that are currently in vogue are basically the management of tax accounts and financial situations under this scenario of hyperinflation. Just as an example, just this morning the tax authorities in Venezuela issued a new ruling where they raised the threshold to pay income taxes for last year, 2015, 3 times what it was before. In Venezuela, we use a system called the tax units, which is basically a numerical value used to set tax obligations and other type of tax elements. And the prior threshold was 1,000 tax units. As of today, 3,000 tax units. So that's just an example of what's going on right now. Another recent development has been the last amendment to the Venezuelan tax law, which basically changed certain parameters regarding the inflation adjustment regime, which has been in place in Venezuela for around 15, 20 years, and it excluded from the regime all bank, finance, and insurance entities, taxpayers. Therefore, all financial related taxpayers do not adjust per inflation their accounts, and basically that will raise their tax exposure in 20-25%. So it's a nice scenario.
Okay, so at least things are happening there. Thank you for that, Pedro. That was Venezuela. I think we can move on to Brazil. Ronaldo?
Yes,
Any news?
for sure. Yeah, a lot of news, a lot of things going on, bro. For sure, you all have seen the newspaper and all that. We are really in a big financial crisis now in Brazil. So 2015 was a really bad year. Our economy was decreased in almost 4%. We are going to have the same scenario for 2016 and the same scenario for 2017. And what's happening? So money is over. Our government needs more and more money. So we have a very interesting situation some years ago where we started to discussing things like BEPS and the international environment and good things about facilitate investments in Brazil and things like this. And suddenly things turned to just to discuss where and in which way Brazilian government can get more and more money from taxpayers. So the picture is not good. We really face a very bad moment. And we have also, on the other hand, a lot of corruption scandals in Brazil now that they are all very high. And all the discussions are related to transparency. So people that use it to send money abroad and does not declare that for the government. Now the government has a lot of tools in order to catch the information, to get it. So unfortunately, we are not improving in creating better taxes or in facilitating investments in Brazil and things like this. Government is running after money, and a lot of secrecy and information is coming. So Brazil in this moment is much more concentrated in having all the information and try to collect taxes from everybody in all the situations that is possible. That is a bit, but it's really what's happening in Brazil nowadays. So things that are really relevant as international taxation, as BEPS and things like this, they are on the site waiting for a better moment to be discussed again.
Yes, you guys do have a big challenge there in Brazil.
For sure.
So thank you, Ronaldo. Then we can go on to Mexico. Adrian, please.
Sure, thank you. Well, in Mexico, right now we are struggling a bit with our current government. As you can see in the news, there has been some headlines from things like corruption or insecurity that travel fast around the world. But in terms of taxes particularly, we have the topic of the electronic accounting, which has been the hottest topic since last year. It isn't resolved already, but there has been a lot of appeals regarding this electronic accounting. We incorporated electronic invoicing since a few years ago. So this move towards electronic accounting has been a very particular and struggling topic. Then we have, of course, transfer pricing with all the BEPS issues that have been discussed worldwide in OECD, as Mexico being a member of the OECD. There has been a lot of work regarding BEPS initiatives and how taxpayers in Mexico will have to comply with new requirements. We have also the maquila companies, which is a figure that a lot of foreign investors use here in Mexico to manufacture products for all the world. It has been some changes to the maquila program, and also the new FATCA situation that it is very a very interesting topic because a lot of Mexicans have accounts in the U.S. It's very, very integrated countries. So these 4 or 5 topics have been the ones that has all of us occupied right now.
Okay. Thank you, Adrian. Interesting, especially the transfer pricing issue, but we will get back to that later on. Then we can move on to Chile. Juan, please tell us about your country. Tax experts, please. Yes.
The trending topic here is basically a huge tax reform took place a year ago. It was one of the biggest amendments in 30 years. It changed basically every aspect of the tax law. It was increased the corporate tax from 21% to 27%. It introduced, following the OECD BEPS guideline, general anti-avoidance rules, also known as GAR. And now we have CFC rules for the first time this year. We adjust the thin capitalization rules in Chile. We also changed the tax rate for capital gains from 21% to 35%. And in relation with VAT, now a virtual sale of real estate are subject to that tax. Basically, everybody is focusing now in understanding those amendments because it was made really quickly, so they have a lot of technical problems. Actually, there was a second amendment. It was published last month, trying to fix all the problem, but still there are some big issues. That's the main trending topic here in Chile.
Okay. Thank you, Juan. Thank you for that information. So now we know a little bit about these 4 countries. I think what is very interesting for people around the world to know is, even though the economic situation is not that great in all of the countries now, but are there still any tax incentive for people who are willing to come to your countries? For example, if we start with Brazil, does Brazil have anything special for foreign investors, Ronaldo?
Yeah, you know, Brazil has a lot of taxation with tax incentives more related to activities than exactly to the international investors. So we have some tax incentives related to factories. We have some tax incentives related to IT products, but not exactly something that we have a specific lower taxation for money coming abroad in order to create companies in Brazil and things like that. We have 2, let's say, very interesting facts about Brazil. The first one is about the dividends. Dividends, you don't pay taxation when you send dividends abroad in Brazil. This is usually something very interesting, but this is something that is under discussion. So some congressmen want to change that. This is one aspect. And the second aspect is about these tax incentives that I told before for certain activities. We have, for instance, in the last year, the tax incentives for IT companies. The government decided to cancel that, but did not cancel that with a new legislation and using the provisional measure that needs to be voted in afterwards in order to see if it to become a legislation or not. So they decided to cancel that. All the IT companies in Brazil were pissed off about this, but the government was not able to negotiate with the Congress if that should be canceled or not. So it was canceled for some months, and now it's back again. So the craziest thing about Brazil is that you never know what's going to happen yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So this is really the most difficult thing. If I tell you, hey, come to Brazil, bring your money to Brazil because there is a tax incentive that you can use, and maybe in the other day this is not true anymore. So this is really the worst thing that we have here about this. And on the other hand, we are not evaluating, we are not going well in all these new discussions about transfer pricing, about BEPS, about the reporting, about avoidance rules, and things like this. This is not being the central discussion in Brazil. So unfortunately, as we told in Chile, we are discussing that. You have Colombia discussing that in Latin, but Brazil is out of this discussion. So we are back and back. We are on the end of the line on these new things. This is also one detail that complicates the relationship here in Brazil. We don't know exactly what will be the opinion of tax authorities about all these changes that we have in the world nowadays.
Oh, so that doesn't sound that great, but let's hope that it will get better, and hopefully you will try to get more laws that will attract investors. Let's hope for that, Ronaldo.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's say I don't want to be the one that will bring only bad news about Brazil, but unfortunately that's what's happening nowadays.
Okay. Thank you for that, Ronaldo. Should I ask you, Pedro, for anything positive? I'm not sure. Please
well, to tell you the truth, when I heard Ronaldo speaking, I thought he was speaking about Venezuela. In Venezuela, we also have a very strict tax system right now, or tax regime right now, where the different tax authorities, both at the local level, at the national level, are trying to increase the revenue as possible. So right now, the scenario is very hard for taxpayers, and it's very difficult to recommend to a foreign investor to come right now to Venezuela. Even though some persons believe that when you are in these moments of crisis, it's a moment to invest. That depends if you have the stomach for it, because in the short run, you're going to have to need a lot of pills to get to sleep at night. The tax authorities in Venezuela in the last couple of years have taken the position that they imposed tax audits on taxpayers, mostly for formal obligations, just trying to press them to contribute, because they lock you with the tax clearances that you need for foreign exchange operations, and therefore you are in a lose-lose situation, because in Venezuela right now the tax courts are also hard pressed to rule against the tax authorities, and therefore there is not an effective and expedite mechanisms to protect taxpayers. So it's not a good scenario right now.
Oh, yes, I understand Venezuela. Not that good news, but Pedro, it will get better. We're hoping. It's the same case here in Suriname, so I totally understand. Let's hope that Mexico and Chile have some good news for us. Adrian, do you have any good news for the investors?
Well, not as much as news, but Mexico has been very known for its maquila program. Basically, that's the most common incentive regarding to taxes, because we have a lot of companies from all around the world that come here to Mexico that import their goods on a temporary basis in order to transport them, and afterwards take them back to the country of origin. So this regimen of the maquila industry allows these companies, these investors, to pay little to none taxes here in Mexico. So there was was a change, an important change in 2014 regarding the maquila companies. Before 2014, maquiladoras had to comply with taxes based on the result of a transfer pricing study. And after 2014, they only have two options now, which is a safe harbor rule or going for an advanced pricing agreement with the Mexican government. But still, this produces already into an increase in the taxes that maquiladoras pay right now against what they used to pay before 2014. But the situation in Mexico, well, where you have well-qualified employees, where you have a logistics advantage, has not really slowed down the coming of companies from other countries. So basically, maquiladora stands as one of our strong points here as for tax incentives. And basically, that's it. We do not have many particular news regarding this topic. And within Mexico, every state, we have 31 states right now. Every state allows some kind of incentive regarding labor or regarding other topics, but this is between states, like a competition between states to offer the best incentives to a maquiladora who comes to Mexico in order to establish in the north, in the south, or any place in the country. So that's about it.
Okay. Now, at least we have some nice, interesting incentives in Mexico that are very useful for the investors. Then we have Chile. Juan, what do you have there for the foreign investors?
I think we are in a pretty good shape, and we don't have specific tax incentive or regime for foreign investors, but that's because we apply the principle of non-discrimination between foreigners and national companies. But we are a good country to invest. We have a great tax treaty network, including USA, China, Japan, Russia, and almost every Latin American country. So Chile works as a really good platform to invest in other Latin American countries. We also have institutional great stability. Institutions generally work here. And I would say that foreign investors are happy. We have some little problems about the tax reform that are almost technical, but things are good, I think, in my country.
So that's good news, Juan. We're happy with that. So at least we know where to invest now. We should all, Chile is the country to go.
Come here, people.
Yes, thank you. So as I heard all of you, I think the most important thing is indeed the trouble of imposing or implementing new laws in order to create more revenue for the tax authorities, of course, and also attract foreign investors. Unfortunately, the governments are not doing that much to make this happen. So I was wondering why is it difficult, or is it what's the problem for Latin American tax administrations to introduce new legislation or new laws to make things better with respect to revenue and, of course, attract foreign investors? Ronaldo, why? I mean, you told me you need money, so what's stopping you to make or the government to act on it when it comes to tax?
Yeah, no, Priscilla, no, this is very interesting because, of course, I mentioned the issue of the money. This is really #1 issue nowadays in Brazil. But to have what I used to say is the political human being side. So Brazil is a very large country. You have 27 states. You have more than 5,000 cities. All the taxations that the central government collects, it's divided with the states, divided with the municipalities. So every time that you need to create something different, something in Brazil, you need to negotiate with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. And of course, if everybody is concerned about the objective of growing the country, creating new things, incentives, and good things, of course you can reach an agreement. But the political situation in Brazil nowadays, you have 50% of the country that would like to maintain the government, and 50% of the country that does not want the government anymore. You have people divided, you have people in the streets fighting one against the others, and this is reflecting the political side of the taxation negotiations. So when we see all the list of the new tax projects that are waiting for votes, that are waiting for the government, 100% of the projects are stopped. So there's no discussion about taxation in Brazil anymore because other political issues are more important now. So the greatest thing about, let's say, the most difficult thing about changing, and the question that you did miss is this: people is not sitting anymore in the same table to discuss taxation. So this is the reason why nothing happens and nothing changes. It's a political issue, much more than anything else. So this is the hard part. And you see, this is different because in Brazil we have crises in the last 20, 30 years. Here we have a lot of problems, except for 5-6 years. But 10 years ago, people used it to sit down and talk about taxation and discuss the change. And nowadays it's not happening anymore. So it's hard to understand. This is not a priority, not even the top and not even the low priority. Things are really not changing. This is crazy. It's hard to understand. And this is the problem. It's people is much more concerned about other things than creating and changing taxes and adapting rules.
Yeah, I understand. I totally understand. It's the same in a lot of Latin American countries, especially my country is also like that. Politics, 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 always that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Ronaldo. And should I ask Venezuela? Is that the same? I think it will be the same issue, but you can.
Once again, I could just call Ronaldo and tell him to please explain what's happening in Venezuela. Also, Venezuela right now, it's well known that it's an oil-producing country, and 90% of our economy is based on oil revenues. And when the oil was over $100 and X dollars, we were doing fine because we had a lot of oil dollars coming in. Right now, with the oil price below $20. And due to the politics that this government in Venezuela had for the prior years, to harass the private companies and the investors, and to force them into certain political parameters. Right now, our oil revenues have come to the floor, and we don't have an industrial base that can produce the tax revenues that were priorly provided by the oil. So at this moment, we also have a political situation whereby the government is just trying to produce enough revenue to survive and to keep the company, the country running, and therefore there is no discussion regarding improving conditions for foreign investments. The government continues saying that they are interested in new foreign investments and calling for investors to come to Venezuela and promising that they will guarantee them certain rights, etc., etc., etc. But that has happened before, and the government has not fulfilled their promises. So it's hard for international investors who a couple of years ago were expropriated of their investments in Venezuela and have had to write off millions and millions of dollars in investments to now believe once again in the government. So right now there's no new scenario. no new perspectives regarding new rules for foreign investments right now.
No, I understand, Pedro. But I was wondering, what is the government planning to do to increase the revenue then? Are you just going to maintain the current revenue and don't do anything to increase it?
Well,
besides attracting foreign investors, of course. I mean, what are other measures you're taking?
Well, it seems that the government is trying to convince or force the OPEC countries in order to limit production so that the price of oil will rise, because that's the only short or middle term solution to our current situation. Theoretically, the government has announced that it's starting a new policy that they call the 14 engines, whereby they are going to promote investments in certain areas, including oil, including telecommunications, tourism, etc., 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 forestry. But those are just good intentions. It's just a political speech, because when you go to brass tacks and you see the actual policies that the government implements, they don't go hand in hand with that speech. They are contradictory with that speech. An example is that on November of last year, the government enacted a new foreign investment law that if you read it, you believe that you are in Switzerland and you are in Norway, because it seems that you have so many investors that you don't want anymore, and therefore you set certain rules whereby you limit the investments, you kill any interest. But for an example, there is a new rule that states that foreign investments have to stay in Venezuela for at least 5 years before you can repatriate any a part of that investment. And in any instance, you can only repatriate 80% of your investment. That means unless you sell your local company to a Venezuelan investor, that means that you automatically lose 20% of your investment. Also, your investment has to be in a sector that the government considers as convenient. Therefore, it's very, very difficult for a foreign company that has other possible investment venues like Chile or Colombia to come to Venezuela right now, notwithstanding what the government says in its public speeches.
Yes. No, at least they're talking about it. That's something. So,
That's true.
Ronaldo, maybe something you should also try to make happen in Brazil. Start talking about the new measures to get money. Would be nice. No, thank you, Pedro.
And you know, it's very simple to perceive that the easiest way to do that is to bring investments and to bring people abroad to invest here in the country. Because, and I didn't know that before, the only measure that the government here is proposing this year is the creation of a tax that we used to have in the past that is called CPMF. This CPMF used to be a tax that every time that you go to the bank and you withdraw money or any kind of transaction that you do in your bank, you pay 0.38% on that transaction. And the only thing that's being discussed nowadays is that, oh, guys, we need that tax again because we cannot survive with that tax. So, as Pedro said, and Venezuela and Brazil, they are very similar on that. How will you convince someone to come here and bring money to Brazil if they will start losing? So the first thing that happens is that you lose. So if you create a company in Brazil and you don't have revenue, you are not operating, you already start paying a lot of taxes. So you start losing a lot of money, and then you need to try to bring that back and have good and have dividends and things like that. But that's really crazy to sell Brazil and its tax aspects.
Yes, I understand the challenge you're facing. Thank you, Ronaldo. Adrian must have some, I think implementing new regulation and making changes is easier there. I hope.
No.
Not?
I think that we can all agree that in all of Latin America, from Mexico to Chile, the word that synthesizes all of this is political issues. So in Mexico, it's the same. We have a lot of problems and between political parties that do not let the country advance at the velocity that it should. And we also have the big problem with regards of the oil price. We also have our biggest revenue or income is from oil, so we have lost a lot of money there. And the third issue we have here in Mexico is that in general all of the people, the taxpayers, are fed up of the tax administrations trying to push the taxpayers who already pay taxes into paying more. And we have more than half of the country based in informality, so they are not paying any type of taxes. And what the government did last year was to incorporate a new set of rules in order to bring all of these businessmen into formality. And what they really accomplished was to push away the taxpayers that were paying taxes into this type of informality. So there's been a struggle there, and we think that we're actually waiting for a new federal government to come in. We are sure that the political party is going to change, maybe put some sense into our nation. And of course, there are countries like Guatemala that are doing things. We know what happened to the last president they had. So we actually admire people from North Guatemala doing that. So we are here in Mexico moving a little slow, waiting for that change to happen. And so that's the situation here.
Okay, thank you, Adrian. And Juan, I'm hoping the tax administration in Chile is easier with introducing new laws.
It's always a little difficult, but actually the tax reform I was talking about was made in 6 months, and it introduced like really big changes, like as I said, CFC, a lot of rules in order to get more, to collect more money. The problem is that the law is not very well written, but I think that 6 months is like a record for us, for an amendment that big in a tax law. And the thing is, the good thing is that I think that the reason is because the government has majority in the Congress, so with that majority, it wasn't a challenge for them to make those amendments.
Okay, so things are very now moving faster in Chile than the other countries. Yes, much faster. I think it's good news, even though the law has some flaws, but still, it's good news that you're moving faster. So thank you, Juan. So now we know a little bit about the countries and the issues. Let's talk about a bigger issue I think all of the countries are facing, that's transfer pricing issues and aggressive tax planning. I was wondering what are the countries doing about this? Are there any measures on how to deal with the transfer pricing issues, in short, the aggressive tax planning issues? Ronaldo?
Okay, Priscilla, no, very interesting point. So just one thing before we enter in the transfer price. Of course, I just have told bad things about Brazil because we're talking about government, we're talking about taxation. It's really hard to defend. But of course, it's a big country with more than 200 million people, and a lot of companies are really doing very well here. When you have a good idea, new thing, usually business goes very well here in Brazil. Talking about transfer pricing, it's funny because we always used to have in Brazil a more strict transfer pricing rules and calculation, because in Brazil law you have the only way that it's possible to calculate transfer pricing. Of course, if you have comparable prices, you can calculate it, but it's really complicated. Or if you open all your numbers and information from all around the world, that's also complicated. So companies in Brazil usually apply the resale method. And in Brazil, you don't have the opportunity to discuss the margin. So we use it to have the 20% margin, the 60% margin. Nowadays, we have more situations when we're talking about commodities, but all the rules and everything comes from the law. So it does not matter so much the condition of your company in Brazil. You have a single way to calculate transfer pricing. And this is very unfair. There is a lot of discussions about the way you calculate that. But there is one thing that we can say here about Brazil is that you know your transfer pricing adjustment because the rule is fixed. You cannot create, you cannot discuss with tax authorities. There is no discussion. This is something different from Brazil, from the other countries, and people ask a lot. There is no possibility of going to the tax authorities and talking to them about a single situation of your company, of your business, and explain why the margin that's in the law it's not reasonable for your business. So does not matter. It's one rule for everybody, so follow the rule. So we don't have so many issues about the way you calculate the transfer pricing. You don't have so many discussions about that. It's not fair for a lot of companies, but there is a single rule. When we see all these changes that now is coming, a lot of people around the world say that the transfer price rules will change in the world to become similar to what we have in Brazil. You are going to have less and less flexibility and easy rules and specific rules for all the situations. Transfer pricing compliance around the world will become more easier and will be something like what we have in Brazil nowadays. I'm not sure, this is not what I'm seeing, but sometimes people come with this idea that the best place to calculate transfer price in Brazil, it's the best place to calculate transfer price around the world is Brazil, because it's not flexible. It's single rules, easy, and does not matter the situation, if it's fair or not, there is one single rule. We don't have seen projects, law projects and things like that changing the way. So the tendency here in Brazil is that transfer price calculation will remain as it is. Specific margins, does not matter what happens.
Okay, thank you. That's, yes, that's clear. Thank you, Ronaldo. Pedro, do you have anything going on regarding transfer pricing?
Well, actually, in Venezuela, the Venezuelan income tax law has a very well-developed regulations regarding transfer pricing that basically establish the arm's length treatment rule and have the different mechanisms in order to calculate transfer pricing. But actually, in practice, tax authorities do not tend to emphasize their tax audits on transfer pricing issues, basically because most of the personnel that works for the tax authorities do not have the appropriate background and information in order to implement them. In Venezuela, normally, if you have a good transfer pricing study that supports your prices, and you don't use certain jurisdictions where it's common knowledge in Venezuela that Venezuelan taxpayers use as a platform for triangulating operations. You usually don't have any issues on transfer pricing in Venezuela right now.
Okay, that's nice. Thank you. Thank you, Pedro. Juan, I'm going to ask you to say something about transfer pricing issues in Chile.
Well, I believe that the legislation in Chile is pretty sophisticated, but we actually are pretty behind. I haven't seen, I think that there is only one tax trial regarding transfer pricing. The IRS usually doesn't, I think that the IRS don't have the technical resources to use those provisions. Actually, one of the reasons of the tax reform was to collect money to improve the professional and the audit regarding transfer pricing. But nowadays, I don't see too many issues regarding transfer pricing. In the technical aspect, the IRS can use every method the OECD provide, like not only I don't know the cost plus and almost I think they are selling and all of them you can are empowered to use them, but in practical I don't see any transfer pricing application in the country.
Okay, that's clear. Thank you. That's good news. Adrian, you should have a lot of transfer pricing information for us.
Yeah, I'm going to try to wrap it up in a couple of minutes. Transfer pricing, well, right now is one of the big issues worldwide because of the whole BEPS action plan initiative that concluded in the end of last year. So the biggest issues right now are for countries that are members of the OECD, because we have to comply with new domestic laws that are basically as a result of these recommendations that the OECD produces. So Mexico and Chile are the only countries here in America besides the US and Canada that are OECD members and have to start complying with these new regulations. We have new tax returns here in Mexico that we have to comply with, especially the bigger or the biggest companies that have to. And there's also in Central America a lot of issues regarding transfer pricing because many of these countries have started the transfer pricing legislation in the last 2 years. So being transfer pricing one of the hot topics in the world, Central American countries that didn't have any type of legislation regarding transfer pricing, they basically put it there in the law with no timeline to really try to develop the technical know-how from the tax authority perspective and also the taxpayer. So in Mexico, for example, we have 20 years of experience in transfer pricing, whether in, for example, Guatemala, this is the first year, Nicaragua pushed it to 2017, and this is a common example for many countries. So taxpayers are usually taken by surprise because of this regulation, and they have to comply whether they like it or not. But the cost of compliance goes up because if they only had to comply before, only, for example, in Mexico, and now they have to comply in all of the countries in Central America, well, they have to pay more fees than they used to, and have to watch out for new regulations, and many of those regulations at a domestic level produces a mismatch between countries. So you have to watch out for compliance, but at a level that don't leave the company with any type of contingency in one or another country. So this has been a hot topic. We have been able to assess some tax authorities in Central America we have 10 or 11 offices in Central America. And this is one of the biggest issues right now. This month, March the 31st, is the due date for transfer pricing declarations and tax returns in many countries. Honduras, Guatemala, Mexico. So right now is, I think, one of the biggest problems many businessmen have.
Okay,
That's it.
thank you. Yes, that's very short, Adrian. I expected a lot more information. I think maybe we should tell everybody that Adrian, he is specialized in transfer pricing, so that's why I saved him for the last. I was wondering, so do you guys have anything to say about what are countries, a lot of countries are not members of the OECD. What's the approach of these countries regarding BEPS, transfer pricing, the whole international issues we are facing now? What are the countries thinking about it, the tax authorities, the governments? What's their point of view? Ronaldo, I know you have other issues, political issues, but just thinking about the opinion of the government regarding this.
Yeah, no, this is very, the situation of Brazil on all these BEPS discussions is really interesting because Brazil was part of all the discussions. So when you go to the BEPS chapter, when you read that, you see that Brazil contributed and Brazil was part of the discussions, although we are not OECD member. And what's the internal position of tax authorities in Brazil about all the BEPS initiatives? When it's something that may reduce taxation in Brazil, the position of tax authorities is that we are not a OECD member, so we don't need to be part, let's say, to assume the position that was finished in the BEPS initiative. So we don't need to respect that, let's say. But on the other hand, in the last months, Brazil has created some, especially in the part of the information, some tax obligations that are very related to the BEPS initiative. So, for instance, a new declaration to inform all the tax planning initiatives. That was a disaster that was done in an unconstitutional way in Brazil, and the Supreme Court canceled that. This was the last year. Now, in the last 2 months, if I'm not wrong, we have created a new tax obligation for the banks related to FATCA. So a lot of things that were discussed in the BEPS initiatives, much more related to transparency, to the information, and things like this. Brazil liked that and is starting to adapt in that. Other things like transfer pricing, all that discussion about the minor services, discussions about anti-avoidance rule, country-by-country reporting, and things like that, they are still not under discussion. And there is a position of tax authorities that we don't need to change our mindset now because we are not part of that. So, for instance, giving new interpretation for the tax treats and things like that. So, still now, we are not going to see major changes on that. But in relation to the transparency, to the information, and one very interesting thing that Brazil did, it was in the beginning of the year, it was a deep review on the list of tax havens. A lot of countries that all around the world they are considered tax havens, they were still not being considered here in Brazil as tax havens. So they did a review on that. The list grew. In all these corruption scandals that we are seeing in Brazil, we are exchanging information with the United States, with Switzerland, and Switzerland is exchanging information, tax information with Switzerland is something really new, and it's really a revolution for us here in Brazil. So talking about BEPS in summary, we have good things happening, especially in the information side, in the transparency side, but we still do not have good things on the other side. That is changing our interpretation about taxation of and transfer pricing rules, and where should we tax or not tax a service that is done worldwide in a worldwide basis. Let's say these more modern discussions, we are still out of that. But I think that, and I'm part of the university, we are going I'm part of the first book of BEPS in Brazil. in the next 2 or 3 months, that will be it will be the first analysis of BEPS initiatives in Brazil. So people are discussing in the universities with tax authorities. Let's say, although they do not accept everything that is there, they are talking about BEPS. They are recognizing that this is something important and this is something that it's for everybody. Now we cannot be completely outside of that. So this is a good thing. Maybe in the next 2 or 3 years, I think that we are going to see some relevant changes here in order to adapt this to this new scenario.
Oh, that sounds good, Ronaldo. Thank you. Pedro, is Venezuela also thinking about BEPS?
Not at all. In Venezuela, there is no talk about BEPS at all. It's a non-issue in Venezuela. Right now, as I mentioned before, the sole topic in Venezuela is basically how to increase our taxable base in order to guarantee the revenue for the tax authorities, and there's no talk at the governmental level or at the tax authority officials regarding BEPS. It's just a non-issue that we have just heard about from our friends in other countries that are actually doing interesting things. But in Venezuela right now, BEPS is not an issue.
Okay.
Priscilla, sorry to interrupt you, but there is one thing, and Brazil and Venezuela, we are very similar. We are really brothers on that. But there is one thing that I believe that in Brazil we have different from Venezuela on that, is that we have a lot of Brazilian companies that nowadays are worldwide companies. So you have companies like Vale, Brazil Foods, banks like Itaú that are working in all Latin America. So these companies in Brazil, much more than the multinational that are from Europe or from US, our internal companies that are the worldwide companies nowadays, they are very concerned about BEPS. Because for them, okay, if Brazil does not adapt, we are not going to have change, but they are facing change all around the world. So I think that comparing Brazil and Venezuela, now we have done a lot of this in the webinar, I think that BEPS is here, a discussion is something that is really happening. The discussions because of the Brazilian companies that work in a worldwide basis. And I believe that Venezuela still not have this kind of companies that we have nowadays in Brazil, right?
That's correct. That's correct. Right now in Venezuela, the only companies that could qualify for that status are actually also trying to see how they can survive due to our exchange control situation that really just takes up all their time. Just seeing how they can still operate.
Okay. No, thank you, Pedro and Ronaldo. Interesting to see the differences and between you guys, your countries. Thank you, Juan. What does Chile think about BEPS and upcoming new trends regarding international taxation?
Well, I think, as I said, we are going well with BEPS, basically because of this new tax reform. And as Brazil now, we have some new obligation regarding information about, for instance, reorganizations, corporate reorganizations. The government is signing a lot of exchange of information agreements. I think in 2017, Chile gonna know everything about their taxpayers, the nationals. We introduced GAR, which is a good measure to challenge some tax avoidance planning. We have new rules regarding think capitalization rules, the CFC rules. We are pretty behind because all these rules probably already exist in Brazil for, I don't know, maybe 10 years. In the United States, I don't know, 15 years. But for us, it's new, but I think we are going in a good way regarding BEPS.
Yes, there's progress. Okay. Thank you, Juan. Adrian, do you still have something to say about the BEPS topic?
So just to say, this was a very complicated and difficult task for the OECD. I think that they did work faster than we all expected. We have many documents coming every month, every 2 months, from drafts, from final edition. So this is, I think that historically, this is the time when the OECD worked faster than in any other topic. Because obviously of the importance of the topic and the motivation that the G20 put on it. So introduce changes in domestic law. That is the most I think that the challenge ahead for every country, members and non-members, because you only have 30-something members in the OECD and more than 100 countries involved in this type of international business. So whether you are not a member, you are involved and could affect any other country, any country in the world. So I think that from this year until 2020, it's going to be a lot of changes, a lot of new laws, and a new evaluation of what is.
You there, Adrian?
I think that there was a problem with the internet.
We don't hear you. Adrian, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, no, yes, please continue. We can hear you again.
Sorry. So you didn't hear what I said? Just to repeat.
Yes, yes, we can hear you again. Yes, you can go on.
Oh yeah. Well, I was saying that the OECD worked faster than ever before in regards to any kind of topic. Transfer pricing and the BEPS initiative, the action plan, was developed in basically 2 to 3 years. And every month we have new documents, new drafts, and new opinions from all around the world. So there's going to be a few years from now to 2016 to 2020 when countries have to implement the domestic law, and then the OECD will have to evaluate if there are need for changes in order to the next following years. So right now we will see many changes in many countries, members and non-members. You know also that the UN has their own transfer pricing guidelines, and this is something that will affect more than 100 companies, not just the 34 to 35 countries that are members of the OECD.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, Adrian. So that's enough about BEPS. A lot of things going on, and a lot of countries still that have to act on it. But there is improvement, and let's wait and see what will happen. I think we have a question from the audience. Let's see. The question is: are Latin American governments investing in new green energy instead of hanging into oil? So, good question, I think. Pedro, please comment on this.
Can you repeat, please? Priscilla,
of course.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. The question is, are Latin American governments investing in new or green energy instead of hanging on the oil they have? Did you hear it?
Okay. Well, yes. In Venezuela, there is a lot of publicity and a lot of talk mostly in the media regarding all the new green technologies and non-oil producing energies, non-oil-based energies. But actually, in Venezuela, there is no formal, real movements from the government or official entities on that regard. The Venezuelan government's politics or policy, for the last years has been to increase its its dependency on oil-related revenues, and its policies tend to augment that situation. So actually, Venezuela, I believe, is one of the most vocal countries in the OPEC that are trying to raise the price of oil, and it's basically because Venezuela is very dependent on oil, and there's notwithstanding the social and public situation regarding other green energies in Venezuela, the governmental policy is to uphold and to augment the oil industry.
Okay, thank you. Looking at the time, we don't have a lot of time left anymore, 5 minutes, something like that. So I'm just going to move a little faster. The other guys, Ronaldo, Adrian, Juan, do you have to comment something to add regarding the green oil question of the audience?
Regarding Brazil, the situation is very similar to Venezuela, because government has a big oil company in Brazil, and it's much more concerned about the oil price and oil production. So we really don't have nothing related to green power here in Brazil, unfortunately.
Okay. Juan, Adrian?
In Chile, we are an importer country, so I think it's better for us to diversify the energy, and I'm not there is no like tax incentive on that industry, but we have geographically we have the condition. We have a desert for solar industry, huge. We have a huge sea, so the wind is very hard, so the wine industry works as well. I think we're going to that direction, and the government is like it.
Okay, thank you, Juan. Adrian, any last thoughts?
In Mexico, I can only add that we do have some tax incentives for companies that start a business in the energy field. The government per se is not doing much in that topic, but it's most as private companies are doing. So the last year, 2015, and this year, we have seen new companies coming to Mexico to develop new technology towards energy, or local domestic companies that are moving towards some type of investigation or getting new assets to produce energy. That's right.
Okay, thank you guys. Then we have a last question from the audience, and that's it. Let's see where it is. The question is, to what extent are companies in Latin America using data analytics on tax issues? For example, providing evidence. To what extent are companies in Latin America using data analysis on tax issues? For example, providing evidence for correcting transfer pricing process.
Well, even I'm not specialized in the transfer pricing area, but I can also assure you that in Venezuela the tax authorities are not really current on that, and they are not focused on those types of issues, and in general terms, Venezuelan tax authorities are not very prone to information exchange with other authorities, even though we have the legal framework for it, but in practice it's not undertaken.
Okay, thank you, Pedro. Not a lot of time, so I have 3 minutes left. So I'm going to ask Adrian to comment on this question, and then we should wrap it up. So
maybe the question is regarding the use of databases in transfer pricing studies in countries in America. Yeah, well, every country in Latin America uses international databases from any company, any provider, and of course, countries in Central America, because of the topic being new, some of them already have the law in place, but they haven't acquired a transfer pricing database in order to carry out audits. So they are like a step behind. The only country that I know of that has their own database of national domestic companies is Colombia. For example, in Colombia, when you do a transfer pricing study, you can use information from local companies that is available online from the government, but only, for example, of the big four firms, only one uses it. The other three uses international databases that basically have the information of public companies from North America. So that's the situation. I think it's very standardized for everyone, and the use of databases is well known.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your explanation, Adrian. So we have 2 minutes left. So anybody, any last thoughts? Any last comments? Please go ahead. Ronaldo, any last comments?
No, let's say we have talked about a lot of interesting things, and it was really a great conversation. And of course, I give the impression that doing things in Brazil it's not good. It's very complicated from taxation issues, and that's really true. We really are facing a very hard situation. Hope that things will change, and hope that in next webinar I'll be able to bring a lot of good news, much more than bad news. So thanks so much, Priscilla.
Yes, of course. Anybody else? No comments? Adrian, Pedro, Juan? Any last thoughts?
Yeah, I think that it's clear that all of Latin America have common issues. The tax environment has brought new challenges for us, for everybody. Some challenges are based on big companies, multinational companies from the US, from Europe, and then the real challenge is how to address them in our local environment with family business, with companies that are not as big as those multinationals, but have to comply in many cases with the same law. So I think that these years have brought these new challenges, and we have a lot of work ahead. It's not that easy in a cultural way for a taxpayer to avoid taxes like they used to or like they want to because of the new regulation. So the cultural mindset has also been changing and will change furthermore.
Okay. Oh, thank you. So we're right on time. It's we're out of time. So Juan and Pedro, I'm not going to ask you to comment anymore. We're going to ask keep the members wanting for more. So I think that's it for today. Thank you for all the information you shared with us. It was very interesting to know about Mexico, Venezuela, Chile, and Brazil, of course. And let's hope for the best and hopefully have a second webinar regarding Latin America. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you
Talk
all
soon.
of you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all of you. Let me just get done with some admin issues. We will have a transcript of the event. It will be available in about 2 weeks. We will have an audio recording too, which should be available in about a week. We will share those links with all of the attendees and with all of the panelists. And just wanted to say thank you so much to Priscilla for moderating, and for our 4 panelists, Pedro, Juan Cristobal, Adrian, and Ronaldo. Muchas gracias, obrigado, and hope you guys have a very nice evening, and hope we do this again sometime soon. And thank you from my